It's spinning. All right. We are live. Welcome to Brave Indigenous Conversations with Joan Jack. And today I have my really long lifetime friend, a Métis friend, Kathy Primrose. And I always start by reading a piece of writing I found when I started this podcast. So I'm going to read that. Brave Space. Together we will create brave space because there is no such thing as a safe space. We exist in the real world. We all carry scars and we have all caused wounds. In this space, we seek to turn down the volume of the outside world. We amplify voices that fight to be heard elsewhere. We call each other to more truth and love. We have the right to start somewhere and continue to grow. We have the responsibility to examine what we think we know. We will not be perfect. It will not always be what we wish it to be, but it will be our brave space together, and we will work on it side by side. So that was written by Mickey Scott B. Jones, who was a Black woman activist in the United States. And I had memorized what she did, but she did a program that still exists today for young Black girls. And I just love that. So today I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous because our subject today is mental health. And Kathy has kindly agreed and bravely agreed to share about her mental health journey, particularly with ADHD, which used to be ADD, but way back in the day. And we're going to talk about that and then anything else that emerges, because this is not a scripted conversation and or a censored conversation. This is a live conversation. So I begin all podcasts by inviting my guests to introduce themselves, as is the custom in my culture. Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. Well, I'm Katherine Grace Primrose, and I live in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I grew up here. And you mentioned that I'm Métis. That's a new understanding for me. I had no idea what our background was at all. The only thing I knew was that we came from Ontario, and with ancestry and genealogy, and actually my dad passing away, I've been in touch with his side of the family, and so getting to know that, and I'm still in the middle of getting my genealogy done, but and I'm super hyper focused on it and very very obsessed. So yeah, so anyways, it's been incredible because I have, I've always admired Indigenous culture, and I've always had incredible Indigenous friends. So, and part of my journey um, has been getting over shame and guilt about being white.
Mm,
And yeah, because from a very young age, I knew that that was kind of bad, that was kind of wrong. So I did not agree with what was going on in the world. So, and I'm also a bit of a jewelry artist. I love making things for my friends, and some of those I sell as well. I've sold things all over the world, and I'm a sober alcoholic and addict as well. I've been sober 28 and a half years.
mhm.
And yeah, I have 5 kids. My mom lives with us, married for 20
Five
years.
birth children.
4 birth children and 1 stepchild.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I've known him since he was born, so
Oh,
he's
nice.
my son. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So this is for those of you watching on YouTube. Where's that camera? This is an example of Kathy's jewelry. This is a bookmark. Look, I need a nail fill. Anyway, this stuff is real. This show is real. Yeah. So Kathy's been a part of our family. My birth sister Annette, Alex Rusin, who's done podcasts with me that are available at my YouTube. Those of you that are new to the podcast, you can go to my YouTube, and there's a playlist there with all of the podcasts from last year. I think there's, I don't know, 25 or something. Amazing conversations I had last year with amazing people. And so anyways, my sister Annette met Kathy 28 years ago, I guess, around there, 28, 29 years ago. And she's been a part of our family. And around the identity piece, I wasn't surprised personally when you
Yeah,
discovered this, because you've always fit in with our culture so smoothly and so, I don't know, just like you always belonged there. So I'm really happy for you.
me too.
And we were talking before we came on about, the disruptions in our identity. Yeah, we won't go there right now. So most recently, um, most recently, it was pointed out to me by one of my adult children that she thought I was ADHD. And I was like, "You think so?" And, it wasn't the first time she'd mentioned it to me. And I've had other family members say, there's some kind of mental health issue that you struggle with, because I'm so volatile or so whatever. Like, turn the Joan down, turn the Joan down is the joke in the family, Or even when I describe myself, I've said to people, yeah, no, I had to turn the Joan way down, which is still a thing, because we have to all relate to each other where we're at.
Yeah.
Um, and so in that the last time that my daughter said that to me, I thought, well, okay, I'll just go get checked. Like, what the hell? I'm open-minded. And I went into a doctor in Winnipeg when I was there. And she said, how can I help you? And I said, I don't know. My kids all think I'm ADHD. And so I said, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about it. And I don't know how people are diagnosed in Manitoba. And yeah, and so she said, "Oh, it's really easy." She said, "I'll print out a questionnaire here, and then, you have to answer the questions honestly, and then we'll see. We'll have a conversation." So I had seen this doctor a few times. And so when I was reading the questions, I thought, "Oh my God, like I'm just acing this. Like I wish I wish this was a test from law school, because fuck, I'm getting an A."
Yeah.
And then about a third of the way down, I started putting sometimes in two or three of the places, and I thought, now what's going on? So I went back and read the questions, and it became really clear that I'm going to be 65 this year. I'm in my 65th year, and I have developed coping mechanisms,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, we'll talk more about that. And so then she came back and she's like, "Yeah, yeah." I was like, "Okay." So they started me on the low dose. I know you know way more about this stuff, so you could talk about stuff about the medication and whatever. Oh, the other thing I should say, heck, I'm a lawyer. We are not doctors. This is not
No.
medical advice.
Yeah.
If you hear this and you think you may have ADHD, you need to go to a doctor. Do not rely on anything in this podcast from
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Yes, please.
So, I'll share more about the experience after you share for a while, Kathy, and what happened after that, like after I started the medication. So you go now. What do you want to say?
Um, yeah, my experience was very similar to yours. Although in elementary school, I was telling you I was having a really challenging year in grade 3, and um, and I mean, I was beating kids up. Um, it was a huge challenge to do work. I couldn't sit still, and my mind kept daydreaming, and I actually attacked the teacher for trying to tell me what to do. Um, punched him in the stomach and threw all the chairs off the desks, and like it was crazy. And so my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor just said, "Yep, she's got ADD. Here you go. You should give her medicine." And my mom said, "I'm not drugging my kid." So she took me to another doc. She said, "I want a second opinion." And he was really resentful at her for even asking that.
Hmm.
And so she did, though, and which is incredible because she
Yeah,
was a very
yeah.
shy person. and she's not one to fight like that. But she took me to another doctor, and the doctor said, "Oh my God, I can't believe he tried to just put her on drugs right away." And I mean, the thing was, this was right after Halloween. So,
Mm.
and my mom didn't, I had a bowl of candy under the TV, and I ate that whenever I wanted. And so, and this was the first time in my life I had ever had a man tell me what to do,
Mm.
ever in my life. I didn't grow up with a dad, and this was my first male teacher. And, him telling me what to do was like, fuck you,
Mhm.
absolutely not.
Mhm.
So this new doctor put me on a special diet of like no preservatives, no food coloring, no sugar, and and it was amazing. Like that really worked. Grade 4, I had the same teacher in grade 2 and grade 4, and she could not believe I was the same kid. It was just a
Mm.
completely different experience for
Just
her.
from the dietary changes.
Yeah. And so I just thought, well, doctors are stupid and they're just trying to drug you. And I took that into accept that. From a very young age, I had anxiety. Once I hit 12, I had really bad depression. I had no discipline, no boundaries. I couldn't follow through on things. I couldn't learn the way that other kids were learning. I couldn't focus. Like
Mhm.
all those problems were still there, but
Mhm.
it was, I'm very smart, so I learned how to cope. Like you said, I learned coping, and they call that masking. And there's a big difference between boys having ADD or being neurodivergent and girls. And so in girls, it's a lot of times internalized. So the overactive part is a lot of times in our minds, or overthinking, overanalyzing, instead of in our actions. And so and so that was the case for me. And I became an addict by the time I was 14, and it was like the answer. This is
Mm.
the answer. It helped with anxiety, it helped with social situations. I had
Yeah.
my skin fit better, all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
for like a couple of
Can I
years.
just
And
interject? I
yeah,
remember I had my first drink when I was, I think, 12, maybe 13,
yeah,
and it was like instant,
yeah,
instant, like, oh my God. I was like, perfect.
yeah, yeah,
And so I can really relate to that relief from the mind, like the
yes,
internalized, all the thoughts going on in your head, it's
yeah,
like so crazy up there.
yeah.
Go ahead.
And part of the thing too is our ADHD minds, from what I've learned, they and I can't remember how it was put exactly, but it's about running on a system of lactic acid instead of whatever. And I could be wrong about this, but this is what I remember hearing. So exercise is incredibly important.
Mm,
Incredibly important. And at that age, I was so terrified of being judged. And like I said, my mind was always racing, and I had such high anxiety about all these things and being embarrassed or not being good enough, because I already felt like that. I already felt not good enough. And so I just stayed in my room. I stayed in the dark. I hardly went to school. And so I didn't get much exercise, and that made everything worse.
mhm,
And yeah, so all of that kind of helped for a couple of years to sort of have a way to calm down my mind.
mhm,
But then quickly it went into like the opposite of that, very, very bad, very quickly. And so I got sober at the age of 17, and I just learned ways, how my mind works, because I was in a recovery way of life now. So there was lots of help, lots of people that understood our emotions and our thoughts and things like that. So it was very easy to find coping skills. And
mhm,
exercise was a big part of that, diet, supplements, but there was always that underlying
mhm.
unworthiness, because things are harder for me than they are for other people. But I thought it was because there was something
Yeah.
like that I was just not trying enough, or
Hmm.
things came easier for other people, which apparently they do. Like if they're not neurodivergent, apparently they do come
So
easier.
talk about neurodivergent. That's a pretty big word. I just recently heard it. So what do you mean when you say
Well,
neurodivergent? What does that mean?
neurodivergent is an umbrella term, so it encompasses ADHD, anxiety, OCD, what else? Autism, um,
So
dyslexia, I
it's a
think.
new word for mental health challenges, kind of.
Mm, it's a neurodivergence is a difference in the way your brain works.
Right.
So there's neurotypical people,
Okay.
the norm, how
Yeah.
their brain works, and then there's neurodivergence. It's diverging from the norm.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I understand about that.
Hmm.
And it runs in families. It's genetic. And the way that as an adult I was diagnosed with ADD or ADHD is that um, my oldest daughter was actually diagnosed when she was 17, I think, in her late teens, and her dad was like severe ADHD. So I just thought, well, that's from his side of the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit from me, but mostly
Yeah.
from him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then my youngest son, actually, he's 10 years younger than my other children, and he was actually diagnosed with autism when he was 4. And I had been in denial about this my whole life because I found coping skills. I found ways to deal with my brain and my
Mhm.
emotions. But there's a certain point, there's like a breaking point. You can do so much for so long, and then you're just maxed out. And for me,
Yeah.
that was having so many children, so having so much to schedule. And the breaking point was during COVID, when there was fear. Everybody was at home, and then my son getting diagnosed, so me learning a lot on the internet about what autism is, what neurodivergence is, and then a lot of things were coming up with ADHD. And I'm watching these and I'm going, wow, that's a really good tip. Like, I've used something like that. This sounds really great. And I kept watching them and I'm thinking of my older daughter and my younger children and maybe a little bit me. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, during COVID actually was when all of this hit the fan, and I was crying. I was calling my doctor and I was saying, I can't, like, I just can't keep up with everything. I cannot do this. My anxiety is horrible again. I'm overthinking everything, and I'm losing track. Like, I'm not able to follow through on things. I'm forgetting, and I just can't keep up. And I just really thought that it was I don't know. And so she said, well, why don't you come in? I'm going to give you and I think maybe I brought this to her because I said, I've been seeing all these things because I've been researching my son and how to help him, and I'm seeing all these things, and they're making me think maybe I did actually have ADHD back then, and those things helped, but there's still this underlying thing that when there's so much to handle, my system can't anymore.
Mhm.
Like, it's not enough. My coping skills aren't keeping up anymore.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, yeah, we did the test,
So
and
let's just pause there first because
yeah,
there's a
sure.
couple of things you've raised. So is ADHD hereditary? And like I said before, we're not doctors, we're not specialists. If you're listening, share this on your Facebook, but we're just a couple of women talking about our personal experiences, willing to
Yeah,
share with people who want to listen.
yeah. Well, from what I've heard, it is if one of your kids is diagnosed with ADHD, it's like, I can't remember the percentage, but it's a high percentage that one of the parents has
Mhm.
ADHD, and that's sometimes a lot of times is how adults are diagnosed, is by
Diagnosed.
their children, which was the case for me.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, and neurodivergence in general is hereditary, as far as I
Mhm. Yeah.
learned. Yeah.
And it's a problem in our brain with how our brain produces or doesn't produce um, serotonin and dopamine.
Dopamine.
Or
Yeah.
dopamine. It
Hmm.
has some to do with serotonin as well, or just the
Yeah. I
dopamine.
don't know as much about that.
Yeah, I think it's both. Like there's other podcasts you can go and look for, like
Yeah.
Dr. Huberman's podcast. He has a
Yeah. That
big
was
three
really
hour,
good.
yeah, a big 3 hour one or whatever on ADHD. That's very scientific. If you've taken your meds and you can listen that long.
Yeah.
So so it's hereditary. And I'll just share a funny with you. When I told my mom's 85 now, I said to her, "Yeah, the doctor says I'm ADHD and I'm going to start taking these medications." She said, "Oh, well, you didn't get it from me. It's your dad." I was like, "Okay, mom."
Well, and that's the funny part is I used to think that it started with me, in my family. I used to think
Mhm,
that I'm the black sheep, and there's something went wrong with me. And then
mhm.
I'm listening to my mom getting ready for work in the morning, and she's running back up and downstairs. Oh shit, I forgot something. Oh my god. And then she's running late for the bus, and she's, tearing through the house, and I'm going, well, maybe that's not just me then.
Yeah. We're getting some nice comments. There aren't that we're not famous like
Oh, that's
some of
okay.
my guests.
That's
So
perfectly
there's
fine.
just a few people watching, but they are loving and they're thanking us for sharing our stories and saying to keep up the good work. So thank you so much.
Oh,
And if you're watching this on Facebook or my YouTube channel, please share it. Because if my motivation, which is I'm sure the same as you, Kathy, is if we help one person out there, like
yeah.
this is a very challenging thing. So let's go back to you got diagnosed and then what happened?
Um, well, the
Like
funny
talk about
part,
the medication thing. Do you have a story around medication?
oh, I had a huge story around medication. Yeah. Because I had been sober so long, and I mean, I was having, like, before this, about 10 years ago, I was having, like, my anxiety, just I developed an anxiety disorder, and I was having panic attacks daily for months. And I didn't go to the doctor for that. I didn't get help for that. I just,
Wow.
I walked an hour every day. I changed my diet, more protein, less sugar, no caffeine, blah blah blah. And so, it's never been on the table. And I mean, I had tried antidepressants when I was 18 because I was really suicidal. And it didn't help me. That wasn't the problem. Um, but so it just wasn't on the table for me. That wasn't even why I was looking for this diagnosis. It was more, I really don't want to feel like a fraud when I'm watching these videos and relating so much and using their advice and things like that. And I didn't even decide to take the medication until the end of my doctor's appointment. And she was because I was talking about that I have this racy brain, and I had always thought, I'm just not working on my character defects enough. I'm just not, I just don't have enough of God. I just am not doing enough for my mental health and my emotional health. And then I was telling her, my brain just will not shut up, and it's like rabbit holes. Every time I'm reminded of something, I'm going into, and I can't get out. Like I have to physically keep myself in the moment. And I've read books like The Power of Now and things like that, and it's an impossibility for me to live that way on a normal basis, because if I'm just calm, my brain's, you know
Hmm.
and so she said, the medication will help that. And I said, are you serious? And she said, yeah, because that's ADHD. That's how we're hyperactive. Usually in
Wow.
women, it's our minds that are hyperactive.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. Like, from the first time I tried that medication, I was in the present. And I was really scared about feeling high or getting dependent on it. Like, I have a hard time still remembering to take it. And I
Mm,
usually let the prescription go till the last minute before I remember to redo it, you know? So like it's not my central thing that I'm thinking about, but what it has, yeah, so where do you want me to go with this? Because
That's
I could talk
okay.
about
That's
so many.
like, well, I'm thinking about things like, okay, so for me, I'll just share a little bit more about my story. So
Mm.
then I took the medication. What is it? The one there everybody's kind of using right now. What is it?
Oh,
Concerta.
yeah,
Is it Concerta?
yeah,
Yeah. And so and she gave me an 18 milligram. Is it milligram?
yeah,
Is it milligram? Okay. 18 milligram, which is the low dose. And
yeah,
so honest to God, within like minutes literally of taking that medication, I can't even tell you how different things were in my brain. Like it yeah, like and I had become really quite attached to all that chaos up there too, which is another thing,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know? And I had started to describe that as to myself, obviously, but as my brilliance, you know? Um
Yes. Well, and it is. It is. Yeah, that it is that as well.
that I my mind was so busy because I'm so brilliant, like
Yeah,
whatever. And so now for me, it's a whatever. I still do believe I am brilliant,
you
and I
are.
think
Yes, you
everyone
are.
is brilliant. But so but now I could really relate to what you're sharing about the rabbit holes and having to finish. Like if I would get distracted by something, I'd be doing this, and then I get distracted by something and start that, I had to finish it. It's like, oh my God, I gotta, I'm as a professional, as a lawyer, like, you're on time things and no, no, you don't have time to clean the laundry or whatever it is,
Yeah,
sort the whatever. You need to be doing this. And even
yeah,
no matter how hard I talk to myself, I just have to finish. It's like the rabbit holes are very dangerous. And so once I started taking the medication, the big one that because I had a huge story about taking pills. Like I don't want to take
mm,
pills. I don't want to be a drug addict, all that stuff, you know. And I so the big one was for me, I have noise sensitivity, I
yeah.
guess.
Me
It's
too.
I
Yeah,
don't know. And so like you're driving along, we're going from Atlanta to Whitehorse, and somebody steps on a water bottle, that plastic crinkling sound, I go crazy. Like it's like I want to kill someone. It's like
yeah,
it just and then I know because I'm emotionally intelligent, that's a really ridiculous reaction to a water bottle. So then I'm struggling with that. Then I'm beating myself up, and sometimes in the truck I would say things like, "Okay, let's do a test. Step on that bottle again, and we're all going to tell from 0 to 10 how loud that was." And so, one passenger would be like, I don't know, 4, and another. I travel with teenagers a lot. Another one would be like, I don't know, 5, and then my husband Brian would be like, "What was that noise for you?" And he'd be like, "What noise?" Like
I know.
he's so chill, eh? And so, and I'd be like, "Well, you guys, I need you to believe me." I always felt like people didn't believe me in the family.
Yeah,
That was a 9 for me. Like that hurt me. That
yeah. I know what you
that
mean.
hurt me physically. And
Yeah,
so, and then when I started taking that medication, when we got back home the first day, my mom, she's 85, like I said, she says to me, "Well, that was a really good day, Joan. I had a really good day with you." I said, "Thanks, Mom." And I'm happy, she said, because I just told your sister if Joan complains about noise once today, I'm not driving with her anymore.
you
And
got in
it
right
made
under
me,
the wire.
yeah, I just got in there right under the wire, and it made me realize that I could hear the noise, but it was normal. Like it was the 4 or 5 that other people describe,
Yeah,
and not the 9 or 10 are off the charts.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah. So I don't know where we went, but say whatever you feel like saying now.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Like, what do you think people should know? Not that we're diagnosing or giving advice, but like for me, the most important part of my experience so far, which hasn't been very long, is the sound, the relief from the sounds.
mhm,
It's just incredible. Like
yeah,
I went around with my shoulders tense all the time, all the
yeah. I
you
know.
know, and I'm catching myself now and just dropping them. And then you just always scared to step on a landmine, like just always on guard, always uptight, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's all gone. And the noise in my head is like, it's so quiet in there.
I know. I know. She had actually, I was on the lowest dose for, I don't know, a long time, probably 2 years or more. And so then, but at first she put me on the lowest dose, and then she was going to work me up, because I think the highest is like 72 or something, and the lowest is 18 for this medication. And so, you go up every week or two or whatever it is. And so the first week I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like, I budgeted, I filled out forms that I made phone calls. Like, I did all, and my house was beautiful. It actually, I have to sort of balance myself, because with the medication, you just see something and you do it, and that's like never happened before. I have to mentally prepare, take a nap first, pray to God, like all this stuff before I can make a phone call and, like, change, whatever. And so, yeah, like all day long I'd be tidying. And then I was like, okay, you can spend an hour on that, and then you need to do other things, because that's all I would do is tidy
Mm,
my all day long. And so, the house is not a museum. There's a family that lives here. It's fine, but that was how good it was. Because the other thing that I've learned about ADHD is that there's a separation between what you know and what you do. So you
mm,
can know all the good things to do for yourself, but it's, do you actually do them? And, for me, like, all of these things I had learned, I've been learning for 30 years, 25 years at that time. But I could not put them into practice.
mm.
Partly it's like I've got a little 5-year-old in me that says, you can't tell me what to do. You're not my real mom. And then partly it's like, yeah, I'll get to it later, because I don't have the energy. And that's the other part of ADHD, is that I heard it talked about from a doctor or some sort of specialist, that said that how
Can
did
I, while you're thinking of it, can I
yeah,
share my experience around the energy thing?
totally.
So the next day, like day 2 of taking the medication,
Yeah,
already I right away started to feel guilty. Like, oh my God, I am stoned. This is working because I am stoned. And the energy that I had, like you talk about breaking points earlier, like I was exhausted, like
yeah,
just exhausted. I had nothing left,
yeah,
nothing left. And so I said to Lonnie, my oldest daughter, I said to her, "Oh my God, Lonnie." I said, I think I'm gonna be a drug addict. Like I'm gonna be a
yeah,
drug addict now. I'm stoned from this damn pill." And then she's like, "Why are you saying that?" And I said, "Well, because I feel so good. I'm not exhausted. How could I go from I can't even walk upstairs, I got nothing, to okay, where do you want to go now? Like, and
yeah,
be really happy about it, eh?"
yeah,
So she said, "Well, mom, the medication is producing the dopamine or whatever she said that my brain needs." And she said, "It's your brain that tells your body it's tired.
yeah,
And so you don't have the ability, your body doesn't have the ability, your brain doesn't have the ability to tell your body anything else but I'm tired."
yeah,
So it's producing that, and then I have, bad knees, some people know I'm waiting for knee surgery, and she said, "And really, think about it, mom." She said, "I don't think you're physically exhausted, you hardly walk." And so it's like, oh my God, what a little what she's 35, but what a brat, like, talk about straight talk. And so that's the other big thing is my energy is not like, for me, it's not through the roof, but for me, it feels like through the roof.
yeah,
Because literally, I've told people for years, do not call me after 3 p.m. because I'm stupid after 3 p.m.
yeah,
Because the most I could get out of myself was till 3 p.m. and then that was it. Like I had
yeah,
nothing.
yeah,
And now I'm actually doing stuff in the evening, not a lot, but if I feel like it. Yeah. So you're shaking your head a lot. Talk about that.
Well, that is exactly what this specialist said, is that the ADHD brain is just trying to stay awake.
Mm,
So that fidgeting, it's just trying to stay awake. And I mean, I work out of town. I work usually an hour out of town. So I would
mm,
be driving and I'd have to be snacking. Please don't arrest me. I would have to be
mm.
snacking to stay awake, or be sucking on a candy or doing something, listening to a book, listening to a podcast. I couldn't be music, couldn't be anything like sort of,
Relaxing.
relaxing, because God forbid. And I actually gave myself high blood pressure because I would drink, 5 extra large Tim Hortons a day, original blend, because I just was so tired all day long. And then that's part of this, is I don't even drink caffeine anymore, and I'm up all day, and I
Yeah.
have the same, it's not like I'm hyper, or like I'm not like, and it does raise your heart rate a little bit, but it's not like when you're high on caffeine, at
Hmm.
all. It's
Yeah.
just normal. I'm just normal in my brain now, and I've
Yeah.
got a normal person's amount of consciousness to work with now.
Mhm.
It's just amazing.
What are some of the coolest things? Says Kathy's done way more research than me, so my agenda was to invite you on here so that I could learn more stuff without having to do it myself. So, what are some of the coolest things you've learned through your research about ADHD? Oh,
um I don't know if I can think of the coolest, but
or were you surprised? You were like, "Oh, I didn't know that," or
oh, you know what?
that
Actually,
explains that.
yes.
Okay.
Something that is very common for people with ADHD is, it's called rejection sensitivity dysphoria,
Mm,
where you have a huge sensitivity about being rejected. So I remember I asked this woman for training, and all she said to me was, "Oh, okay, well, let's have a meeting, we'll talk about that." And I took that as absolutely not. I just want to do it in private so that I can tell you absolutely not, you know? I asked another woman, and she said, "Okay, that's, yes, I'm willing, but I don't want you to take this and then do XYZ with it." And I
mhm,
took that as a no.
mhm,
If somebody's looking at me weird, I remember this moment with my client. We were driving home, and she was planning a New Year's Eve party, and she was quiet in the back, and I had to run an errand before, and I knew she had to get home, she had to get her house ready, her guests were coming, and I was feeling so guilty that I had left this one thing to do until the very end, that I knew she was upset with me in the back. She was, just raging at me. Oh, sorry.
that's okay.
Um, she was raging in her head at me in the back seat. And so we get home, and I'm helping her, and I said, "I'm just so sorry that I had to do that. I know that you had all this stuff planned tonight, and I'm really sorry I took that extra time." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Well, you've just seemed upset with me, since we left." And she said, "Oh, no, 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 sorry. I was just trying to figure out what happened to my other sock. I wanted to wear this pair of socks tonight, but I remember the last time I tried to wear them, I could only find one of them. And I'm just trying to think what on earth I did with them." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, I'm thinking I'm going to be fired. I'm thinking I'm a horrible worker, like all this stuff." And she's going, "Oh my God, no, 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 absolutely not." So that has been a huge thing to know. There's actually a term for that, and
Yeah.
it's very
Do you
common.
remember the full thing? Because I've struggled with that all my life.
Yeah,
Like
it's called rejection sensitivity, rejection sensitive dysphoria, something like that, or
rejection
dysmorphia.
sensitive dysmorphia.
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria.
Dysphoria or dysmorphia, I can't remember,
Okay.
but it's
I'll
it's
have to
where
do
it's
some.
off. You're
And that,
reject you're Yeah.
so you just go through life assuming you're rejected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's got a stern look on their face across the room. "Well, they hate me. I wonder what I did." And then I'll go, my racy, crazy
Yeah.
brain will go
Oh,
into
yeah.
these rabbit holes of
Yeah.
trying to think, like, what else. And then the executive function was really incredible to learn, that it's not because I haven't done
What
my
is it?
work
What
enough.
is executive function? Some people listening might not know.
Executive function is prioritizing things, knowing in a day, knowing what is the thing that has to be done today, and what are some things, if I get those things done, that I'll have time for.
Mhm.
You were talking about doing something that you had to finish before you could, and you were, you're a lawyer, you're being paid for all this.
Yeah,
Well, for me, I had an appointment, and it was a phone call, and I was downstairs, and I had found this notebook, and there were pages in it, and I thought, well, this is a perfectly good notebook, but I had just wasted these first pages, so I was taking them out. And then there was, in the middle of the coils, there was like extra pieces of paper.
yeah,
I
yeah,
could not force myself away from that stupid project that
yeah.
I hadn't signed up for. It wasn't on my to-do list. There was no reason for me to be doing that. It was $1, maybe even 50 cents, maybe even 15 cents notebook. And I'm spending half an hour trying to take it apart. So things like that, prioritizing, emails. Like, I have thousands of emails. I have to spend a day every now and then because my brain will not let me do it on a regular basis.
I never thought of that. Oh my God. I have 20,000 unopened
I
emails.
know.
And I actually tell people, like in my professional life, okay, if you've emailed me, you need to text me and say, Joan, go look at your email now. And I will. I promise I will. I'll go look and,
Yeah,
whatever.
I know. Yeah. So that's executive
Oh my
function,
God.
making sure that you're paying all your bills on time, because I would think, I have the money to pay my bills, and I would miss something. For 3 months, I missed my phone bill for 3 months because I don't have, and I mean, I took business admin. I graduated from that program. There is no reason for me not to be able to pay all my bills on time. I've
Yeah,
got the skills. I know how
yeah.
to budget, but it's that, if I
Follow
want
through.
another,
Follow through.
and that
Yes.
was the other thing is I would go into hyperfixations, which means like you're completely focused on one thing. And to live a well-balanced life, you need to spend time on your physical, your mental, your emotional, your social,
Spirit.
all of these, and
Yeah.
work, and yeah, all the different areas of your life. I could only do one area at a time. If I needed to lose weight, that is all I could focus on. That's all I would talk about. That's all I would do. If it
Mm,
was my spiritual life, that's all I would do. If it was my
mm,
budget and my finance life, that's all I could do. I did
mm.
not have enough energy to break up, to break up my attention. And now I do just these little spot checks after
Go ahead. You go ahead. After what?
after after this journey. Like, now what my life is like today
Yeah.
is I'm learning French.
Yeah.
Like, I've spent almost 2 full years every day doing a little bit of French every day. I'm learning music. Like, I'm using this app, Duolingo, which is very ADHD friendly. If you're interested in learning a language or math, they've got a few different skills. But yeah, so, and I've got energy to put into these micro, you know, m- little micro areas. My house is tidy
Hmm.
all the time. I'm
Hmm.
able to, the other thing I used to do was get really angry and overwhelmed,
Oh, yeah.
because I didn't know how to ask for help, and I figured I should be able to keep our house, there's 6 to 8 people living in our house at any
Hmm.
time, but I should have it all together. I know that I shouldn't have to do it all myself, but I don't have the energy to delegate
Hmm.
before all this because of the rejection sensitivity, because of the shame and guilt of not being able to keep up and all this
And
stuff.
so when you started taking when you got diagnosed with ADHD, which is a real thing, like certainly there's a overlap in some of our behaviors. If we're diagnosed with ADHD, it's not that people without ADHD don't have some of these behaviors.
Yes.
Of course
Yes.
they do.
Yes.
It's just that it's more around the overall functioning, the over and internally. internally, how I feel internally.
Yeah.
And that's the big thing. Um, I just wanted to also say that there are a couple of comments here. Very interesting. So a woman was commenting saying that we all feel tired around 3:30 or whatever. And so that's true. But
Yeah.
this has always been the way it is for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
whether I was 18 or 65.
Yes.
I could not function. I had only it seemed like, in fact, this is going to be really culturally inappropriate and probably people are going to be mad, but whatever. I was saying to Brian before the medication, I'm going to give myself a new Indian name. And he's like, what? And I said, quarter tank gas. Because I felt like,
Yes.
I felt like all I ever have is a quarter tank of gas
Yeah.
for the day.
Yeah.
And, if I use up the quarter tank by 11 o'clock, we're done.
Yeah.
We're done. I can't figure out or decide anything.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, I'm getting to be, I don't feel like I'm full tank yet, but I'm resting better. You know, another woman commented that RSD, the
Yeah.
rejection, what is it again? Rejection
Rejection sensitive dysphoria or
disorder,
something like that.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, is such a big thing. She says most of my life, it's like looking to be rejected and hearing
Yeah.
rejection in almost everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I can totally, totally relate to that. Like, and
Yeah.
yeah, so many stories. So we're kind of winding down. We're both members of a 12-step program that starts on time and ends on time.
Yeah.
And so we're at the top of the hour, 51. So I always invite my guests to, is there anything else you wanted to say before we're done? And then I'll wrap up as well. I mean, I don't even know what we talked about really, but I'll listen after.
Yeah. Um, well, something that I had heard that is if you have friends that are neurodivergent and you really relate to them, that's a big clue, because we tend to attract each other because we get each other,
Hmm.
and that has been such a blessing because in a lot of circles I feel just weird and wrong and, not good enough. But in these circles I just feel seen and understood and normal,
Beautiful.
and there's actually an amazing content creator who is, I don't know if she's autistic and ADHD or just one or the other, but she talks about the normal people as the neurodivergents, and then she looks at the neurotypicals the way that they're used to looking at us, and it's really good. Yeah, so it's just been amazing getting to know that, it's not about that I'm not good enough or that I'm not capable. It's about working with my system. I have a certain system,
Mm-hmm.
and we all do. And like you said, everybody gets tired. Everybody has low energy days. Everybody struggles with keeping up with tasks, especially in this day and age where there's so much always coming at us, and we
Oh yeah.
and so something that's really important to me too in all of this is managing my energy, knowing that I only have a little bit, and so discerning what is important for me in my life and what isn't, and really holding those boundaries around that, because I can have this toxic loyalty because of the rejection sensitivity and all these other things where I have to stay even if I don't feel good there. I have
Mm-hmm.
to people please or pretend or and I just don't want to waste my energy like that anymore. So I'm being very discerning about the places that I go and the people that I'm with, and if it doesn't feel good, I'm not going to stay anymore. So it's like a huge self-esteem thing. And then when I do have that energy, I get to spend time with you. I have so many amazing friends,
Mm-hmm.
and we're real with each other,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm courageous enough to get to know myself and
Mm-hmm.
to say, I don't let my ego, stand
Mm-hmm.
in the way. And it's okay not to be perfect and politically correct, or I mean not politically correct, but neurotypical. It's okay not to be neurotypical. I don't have to be, and there's nothing
Yes.
wrong with me. but working with what I have and the system that I have allows me to have to look on YouTube and look up ADHD, and there's tons of information about it, about how to manage it, and live really effective, fulfilling lives in that system.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think, I mean, like I said, I'm at the beginning of I just got diagnosed in December. So I'm like in my first 30 days of living with the medication that I need for my brain to produce the dopamine or whatever the hell it's not producing.
Yeah.
But in such a
Oh,
short time, things have just improved so much. Even my knees hurt less. It's
yeah. Well, that's a thing. That actually is a thing.
really,
Low dopamine causes pain.
yeah, my body
That is
pain is,
something.
yeah, like I feel young. I feel
Yeah.
vibrant.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I loved what you just said about we attract, birds of a feather fly together, eh? And so like when I'm with, never in the 27, 8 years I've known you, never once have I gotten the feeling, oh my God, turn the Joan down,
Yeah.
So so now I'm going to reframe that. The next time I have that feeling, it's probably because I'm with someone who's not neurodivergent.
Yeah.
But whatever. It's like, yeah, no, I totally love the conversation, and thank you so much for being willing to be so transparent and vulnerable. And I just love doing this stuff. And so those of you that, I'm just going to close now. Those of you that are watching live, if you shared it on your Facebook, that's great. If you watch after, even if it's not for you, share it. It might be for somebody else. And please go to my YouTube channel and subscribe. Then you'll get a notification on YouTube when I go live on YouTube. And then there are playlists under there from all the conversations last year. Great conversations I had last year. Really wonderful. And going to try to do this as regular as I can, but it's challenging to get people, especially high profile people. I mean, there's all kinds of people. I think the value of our conversation, Kathy, is just as valuable as the value of high profile people's conversations. So we need a mix.
Yeah.
Like you'll see from last year's conversations, there's some people who are very well known and other people who no one even heard about. And so it doesn't matter to me. If you want to be a guest on my podcast, message me and we'll do that. So the last thing I usually do is feature my earrings. I couldn't remember who made my earrings last time, but these are made by Becky Ann in Winnipeg. She's on Facebook. And Becky Ann's beading is very spiritual. Like, it's not that this particular design isn't a common design, but I buy a lot of beaded earrings, and I believe people put their spirit into whatever they create. And even I'm putting my spirit into this podcast. And so um, when I wear Becky Ann's jewelry, any kind of design of hers, and I go to Whitehorse, let's say, at least 3 people stop me and say, wow, those are beautiful earrings. And so I really lift her up. She's a stay-at-home mom who beads, and her stuff is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm just going to sign off a couple minutes early here, and thank you all for watching, listening, sharing, and subscribe to my YouTube, because you know what? Joe Rogan can move over. There's room.